Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. I got my granny glasses on. Anyway, happy Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me. We have an awesome show planned for you today. Hey, we got a new member of the, potentially of the Fearless Army. I'll be interested to hear you all's review of our first guest today, John Root. He's got a pretty popular social media feed. I follow him on X. He posts a lot of content consistent with what we like to talk about here on this show. He used to be with TPUSA. He was a broadcaster for I believe the San Jose Sharks, did some work maybe with the Golden State Warriors as well. He was well on his way to being some sort of mainstream legacy broadcaster. And then he pivoted, like a lot of us do, and said, hey, man, there's some stuff about God I want to get off my chest. But I'm looking forward to John Root because we're going to start today's show with a topic, that's not 1,000% in my wheelhouse, but I feel like we got to do it. This Four Nations deal, this Team Canada versus Team USA tonight is going to be magnificent. And so we're going to start the show there. At some point, we will pivot into Steve Kim and go over some topics, a couple of topics with Steve. Bill Belichick, there was an interesting story in USA Today about all the money that North Carolina is directing towards their football program and perhaps competing with their basketball program. And the USA Today is alleging that Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director at North Carolina, was pushed, forced, demanded into making Bill Belichick the football coach there. We'll get Steve Kim's take on that. William C. Rhoden. You guys remember William C. Rhoden. He was with the New York Times. He now writes for Anscape at ESPN. He says the solution to NBA All-Star Weekend is turn it into a celebration of Black History Month. That'll fix it. If it's a celebration of Black history. Bottom line, Bill is saying, and Bill and I used to be friends, no longer. Bill is pretty woke, and Bill is a hardcore racial idolater, and that's what he's calling for. Hey, you know how to fix the NBA? Racial idolatry. More Black Lives Matter, more Black History Month. Anyway, we'll ask Steve Kim about that. With John Root, beyond the hockey stuff, we will also talk about Chris Kluwe, former NFL punter with the Minnesota Vikings for a number of years. He's been woke for a long time. He got arrested at a city council meeting the other night, calling MAGA people Nazis and making a spectacle of himself. We'll talk a little bit about that. Have you seen, and we'll save this for Shamika, have you seen the new pictures of Lizzo? Lizzo is about that Ozempic life or about that workout life or about that dieting life. Lizzo, if I were speculating, we'll ask Shamika, she's the expert. Lizzo maybe flirting with 200 pounds, 205-ish is what my speculation would be. Lizzo's about 50 pounds away from being a smoke show. And I say that in all seriousness. Shamika, you just start doing the math and calculating. Am I right in the 200 area for Lizzo? It's hard with women. But Lizzo, she's about 50 pounds away. She gets in that, because I think she's kind of tall. She gets in that 150 range. Oh, boy. She pressure on me, inspiration for me. We'll talk about that with Shamika as well. Dr. Umar, you guys know Brother Umar, Dr. Umar Johnson. He had something interesting to say about Barack Obama. We'll also talk with Shamika about that. He's now saying what people like me have been saying for a number of years. Barack Obama's real job was to promote the LGBTQIA+ silent P agenda, and he's done that. Now we hear it from Dr. Umar, who's kind of, you guys know who Dr. Umar is. Anyway, Shamika and I will talk about it. But we want to start by thanking our good friends at Relief Factor for making this show, today's show, possible, and for having me in such good spirits. I worked out this morning. I worked out yesterday too, but I worked out this morning before today's show. I'm going to get a lift in after this show. And the reason why I can do all of this is partially because of I've implemented Relief Factor back into my daily routine, and I'm feeling much more pain-free and able to do far more than previously. If I asked you what it would mean for you to start living better, what would you tell me? Maybe you'd talk about a better job, making more money. What about feeling better? What about living with less pain? Maybe even no pain. I used to think it wasn't possible for me to get out of pain until I discovered something that helped me live better, Relief Factor. It's a 100% drug-free daily supplement that helps your body fight pain naturally. Developed by doctors, Relief Factor works by supporting your body's response to inflammation. It doesn't just mask pain for a short time, it helps reduce or even eliminate it. It's safe to take daily. In fact, the longer you take Relief Factor, the more effective it is. Whether it's neck, back, joint, or muscle pain, Relief Factor can help. More than 1 million people have turned to Relief Factor. Every day you feel better is a day you get to live better. Give Relief Factor a try. With their pain-free trial, you can get a 3-week quick start for only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Here's the number to call, 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or visit relieffactor.com. Let's get to tonight's main event, and today's main event, Team USA versus Team Canada. I can't believe it. I'm sitting here, what are we, 35, 45? How many years away? 1980, let me do the math. 80 plus 20 is 2,000. 25 plus 2,000, carry the one. 25 plus 20, 45 years. We're 45 years removed from the Miracle on Ice, and I'm finally super excited about another hockey match. And it's Team USA versus Team Canada. I'm just sorry. This is the event of the winter other than the Super Bowl. And I may be looking more forward to this than the Super Bowl. Everybody's caught up in this renewed patriotism, at least for those of us that are on the conservative side or just want to see the swamp drain, that are happy about Donald Trump being in office and Doge and all this discovery of all the corruption and waste going on in our government. No better time to beat your chest about America and what's going on. And we all get to do it tonight when Team USA tries to steal hockey supremacy from Team Canada. Our guest, John Root, who knows a lot more about hockey than I do. I know a little bit and used to be a pretty hardcore Detroit Red Wings fan back in the Scotty Bowman days. But again, I haven't been this excited about planning a day around hockey since 1980. And I can remember the little black and white TV. We're living in Nottingham Village apartments on the far east side of Indianapolis. Shout out to my far east siders out there. I'm living in Nottingham Village apartments in 1980, and I watched The Miracle on Ice on a little black and white television. It was I think it was a 19-inch screen that was in our kitchen, and I was at a bar stool in our kitchen, and I watched The Miracle on Ice. That was us beating the Soviet Union in hockey in the 1980 Olympics. It was amazing. I'm going to have some of those same feelings. Do I hate Canada the way we used to hate Russia? Probably not. But I'm not a fan of Canada. They got that left-wing loon, Fidel Castro's illegitimate son, Justin Trudeau, who had been running the country. I think he's been run out now. But they got Justin Trudeau. They're leftist and woke. I can't wait. They booed our national anthem just last Saturday when we beat them in the first match between the two teams. I cannot wait for tonight. Our guest, John Root, was it? Yeah, it was John Root, or was it PK Subban? The difference, what we have going on here is, and what's going on in hockey is you got real passion, and this is what's missing from like the NBA and some American sports. You got real passion. again, I'm not a big fan of this word, but I got to use it here. You got pride. You got national pride on the line. And you have physicality. Passion, pride, and physicality. We got a 3P going on tonight, and I can't wait to participate. We're going to welcome in John Root, who's going to help me break this down. John, let's start here. You're a hardcore hockey person. Is this the biggest hockey match? And again, you're young, but you weren't around in 1980. How big is...
I wasn't even a thought, Jason.
Yeah, you weren't even around. So how big is this match tonight? Am I over-exaggerating, comparing it to the Miracle on Ice?
Well, let me start with this, Jason. I'm a little bit disappointed I wasn't invited on for the hair segment yesterday with you and TJ. I feel like I got pretty good hair myself, but I'll forgive you for that.
You do?
But, Jason,
yeah.
I'm with you. This is the biggest game since the Miracle on Ice. And just like you're saying, there's so much political division going on right now, and it's funny seeing a bunch of Canadians act like a bunch of leftists. They're more angry that Trump is putting tariffs on Canada and threatening to make them the 51st state of the United States. He even said that he was going to call the team before the game tonight, not going to be able to make it. But people are starting to boo our anthem. The players are like, that's not happening. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. We don't care how much money we're making. We don't care if we lose our teeth by getting a puck to the face or a fist to the face. And you juxtapose that to what we just saw in the NBA All-Star game, where you got CP3, Victor Wembanyama. They're not even competing and trying to cheat in the skills challenge. And then you got these guys that are basically saying, I'm pretty much willing to break a leg for my country.
Well, hold on. You missed the biggest one. LeBron James tapped out with a sore ankle. CP3, that's a skills competition. Yeah, low man. I mean, could you imagine a hockey player in an all-star, in any environment, like, hey, I'm gonna tap out. I think I got a sore ankle, and I'm gonna wait till the last minute. I'm not gonna give someone else the opportunity. I do want to defend the NBA in this regard, because this is great what hockey has. But, John, if we're honest, hockey had the same problem with its all-star game for a number of years and had to switch formats and to come up with something to get the players to compete at this level. Am I accurate there?
Yeah, when I was working for the Sharks, I actually got to work an all-star weekend, worked a skills challenge, worked the all-star game, and they switched it around. They started having 3-on-3, spread the ice out a little bit more. Let's show off the skill players. Let's get McDavid out there. Let's get some of these defensive guys, see how much they can cover the ice. And they got to a point, just like you're saying in the NBA, it's like, do we really care? Like, we're making millions of dollars. Do I really want to put my body on the line for really nothing? But now when you got the national pride behind this and the political aspect of this, just like we have with the Miracle on Ice, Soviet Union versus the United States, you're spot on. I know we hate to say the word pride, but these guys are like, yeah, like Canada is hockey town, but Canada hasn't won a Stanley Cup since 1993. It's been over 30 years. You just had the Oilers playing the Panthers in the Stanley Cup final. Everybody thought McDavid's our poster boy. We're finally going to be able to hoist a Stanley Cup in Canada, the place where hockey started. And now they're like, we can't let the United States make us look bad again. But when you start making the political aspect into it, you boo our anthem, we're going to throw fists, we're going to win games. And it's cool to see people like J.J. Watt tweet about it. He said, I'm getting my buddies together. This is weird. I can't believe that we're excited about a hockey game in February. Just like you said, it's the biggest sporting event, probably other than the Super Bowl, we're going to see this year.
John, let me play you a clip from PK Subban, who was trying to explain the difference between the hockey and basketball. I thought he nailed it. And again, I'm going to give the NBA the defense of like, hey, hockey had this problem. But there is a cultural difference between hockey and basketball. And again, hockey embraces its physicality the same way as football, the same way as boxing There is something to sports that require a level of physicality that I do think brings out the competitive fire, because, I mean, if you're not competing in hockey, if you're not really competing in football, that's how you get hurt. But let's listen to PK Subban, and then we'll get your reaction.
Hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played. You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. Like, the culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in. It's not just based on the skill and talent. It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What, you're injured? Well, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt. We play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. What do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. You got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice, because those people are paying the price of admission. So fans know whether our stars are on the ice or not, they're getting their money's worth. The NBA has that issue that they got to work on. You got to create a better culture for your players. It starts with the leaders. This issue, there was no issue when Jordan was around. There was no issue when Kobe was around. There's no issue when Sidney Crosby's around. There's no issue when Wayne Gretzky was around, because those are true leaders. They lead by example. The league set it up, but the players went out there and decided and said, you know what, boys? We're all in. When is the NBA going to do that?
John, his comments reminded me of what Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Boston Celtics, said a few months ago. And people, I think, thought he was crazy. But he was like, hey, man, we got to let basketball players fight again. And people thought that was crazy. But what he recognizes is that if you reduce your concern about safety and allow men to compete to the point where they want to fight and occasionally they do fight, that's how you ensure a high level of competition. If there is the threat or consequence of, like, oh man, this guy will take a swing at me and we'll have to fight, it makes people compete at a higher level. Safety is the enemy of competition for men. And I know hockey's gone through it a little bit where they tried to reduce the fighting or whatever, but the reality is, in sports where fighting is allowed, from MMA to boxing to hockey to Major League Baseball, they still occasionally fight and throw hands. In football, fights break out on the field. Where they've eliminated fighting in basketball, I think it has damaged competition.
Well, that's why a lot of people just call these leagues soft. I mean, they're making so much money, Jason, and I think obviously Kevin Hart was a disaster in the NBA All-Star game, but when he joined ESPN, I think it was last year or something, he's like, all right, this is how you need to tackle me. You need to lift me up, slowly put me down in my grave, and that's how you need to sack the quarterback. I mean, you got a bunch of guys that are just like LeBron James, Luka Doncic, a lot of the stars that are flopping. It looks like soccer. So people don't feel the masculinity and the pride behind the way they play. They sit out, just like Colin Cowherd said. I know you mentioned that. That was maybe a month ago or so, a few weeks ago, that they've lost touch with the everyday American, just like Democrats have. People are paying hard-earned money. Like tonight, tickets, I think the lowest ticket is like $1,000, Jason, to get into this game. An all-star weekend matchup. That's crazy for hockey. But they're losing sight of what people want to see in sports. They want to see a scuffle. They want to see, like in baseball, Jose Bautista, the scuffle he got in at second base. They want to see these guys throw hands and feel like, oh, it's not just a bunch of buddy-buddy, jersey swapping. Everybody wants to join each other's teams at the end of the season in free agency. This actually has legit animosity. These guys want to fight because there's probably legitimate hate here. You don't see that in the NBA. These guys just, They'll act like they're tough on the court, and then they'll dap each other up, and they're cool afterwards.
Yeah, we see too much of that in sports, and there's a fine line. And you know, I know it sounds barbaric, and I know we're hyper-focused. Everybody's got CTE, and no one wants to see anyone get knocked out. And the reality is, if we're going to have competitive men's sports, there has to be this little extra level of consequence. If things get out of hand, we got to live with it and deal with it. Rudy Tomjanovich, again, you're too young to remember this, but not Rudy Tomjanovich, it was Kermit Washington knocked out and nearly killed Rudy Tomjanovich on an NBA court during a fight. And it was horrible. And I think this happened in the late 70s, maybe early 80s. It's one of the ugliest things I've seen in sports. But it happened. Kermit Washington got dealt with and suspended and whatever happened. And the game just kept moving. We didn't say, oh, my God, there can be no fighting. It wasn't until, again, the more money these guys make, the more they just feel like, oh, God, anything that, you know, we got to reduce the consequences, got to be less contact. It's the enemy of competitive sports for men. And people don't understand that. As long as they keep eliminating the consequences and the physicality in men's sports, what they're really doing is empowering women's sports. And it's not that I'm sitting here anti-women's sports, but they're more competitive in the women's game, and it's not that they're fighting because no one wants to see women fight, but they are more competitive, particularly as it relates to basketball and the WNBA. There's real animus there. There are women that can't stand Caitlin Clark. And when they go out there, like the Dejanay Carrington, when she nearly scratched out, clawed out Caitlin Clark's eyes, that fuels a passion among fans, among the competitors. People are forced to take sides. People think I'm crazy, but I keep saying the WNBA is going to surpass the NBA. And it's because the way the NBA game has been softened. And tonight, we're going to see, I think, 7-8 million people tune in to watch a hockey match. We haven't done that in forever, and it's because of the competitive fire. We know how bad these guys want it to the point that they're willing to fight over it. Obviously, there's all this national pride. Bill Guerra, I think, invited Trump to come to the deal. I don't think Trump can come. But there are real stakes and real consequences here. And I think there is a lesson for the NBA to learn from this. Is one, you can fix your all-star game. But everyone thinks, hey, just make it Team USA versus, the international players. And that would help. But unless we allow these guys to really compete the way they used to really compete, when the Boston Celtics would knock the Los Angeles Lakers to the floor, when the Lakers, hold on, we'll get Kurt Rambis and we'll fight back with the Detroit Pistons bad boys and all that. If you don't have that element in your sport for men's sports, you just don't have compelling television.
And I know you'll agree with me, everything's been feminized. That's it. People watch the Pro Bowl and it's like, these guys are playing flag football? I don't want to tune in to watch these guys play flag football. And especially when you got this feminized pretty boy culture like you were talking about with Lamar Jackson yesterday and all these athletes that, want to be the biggest fashionistas out there. Hockey players are the opposite. They'll go and lose a tooth, get it stitched up, and then head back out there. I mean, this is a whole different sport. I've always told people that obviously hockey is not a very popular sport in America, but it's the best sport to watch live. It's better than anything else. And you're living in Nashville, Jason. Predators games are some of the best games you'll watch. It feels like it's got aspects of the Premier League with how the fans are into it. It feels like aspects of the old Oracle Arena, Roracle with the Golden State Warriors. You got people passionate about what these guys are doing. And these other leagues, like Kevin Durant came out and said the other day, told a fan on Twitter or on X, you know what? We basically just don't play physical. We don't really have much pride in the game. So just go watch hockey. I mean, they're admitting it now. They're basically just saying, like, we don't care that much.
call up that Kevin Durant tweet. I want to read it verbatim. I just had it up. This is Kevin Durant, one of the best players in the NBA, someone that I really like and respect. He's transparent and honest, but maybe he's a bit too honest here. For the betterment of your mental health and just overall well-being, just don't watch the NBA. Hockey is right there, and they play with that aggression that you may like. They also rarely get traded or go to new teams in free agency, so the loyalty aspect is there. Hope that helps. It's there, and I don't blame these guys for being arrogant. They make so much money. They have FU money, as you like to say. And Kevin Durant's now towards the end of his career. So he that's the other issue when you eliminate pride, which Johnny helped me out here. Johnny from our prayer group was like, when you eliminate ownership and responsibility, and that's what a lot of these NBA players don't feel like, or what they're missing, is they don't feel a responsibility to lead the game better than what they found it. They don't have any ownership. They don't have the sort of pride like, hey, I came into the league and Dr. J and these other, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, they built it up so I can make all, how can I leave the game in a better place? These guys are like, hey, I got mine, and F the people on social media. They don't like this game. We're not as popular. We're reviled. I got my money. I'm good. Kevin Durant's not of that mindset. None of these young athletes are. LeBron James certainly isn't. And so they're perfectly fine with eliminating the competitive spirit. And if the game just happens to not be as good as it used to be, no sweat off them. They've made their money. So, sorry about that. I want to play you a clip. This is about getting back to the fighting aspect of this whole deal. I want to play you this clip from Molly Karam, where she makes the insinuation that fighting in hockey is tolerated and embraced and celebrated, primarily because it's a bunch of white players. She played the race card, but let's play the clip.
It's just interesting to me that certain sports you're allowed to fight and other sports could never happen.
And they, by the way,
Optics!
In international competition over the last 50 years, they've had a total of 5 fights. USA and Canada, they had 3 and 9 seconds on Saturday night. That drove me crazy. All right, number 2.
Just a little hypocrisy.
Optics and hypocrisy. Molly, if the players in the NBA wanted fighting, it would happen. Adam Silver does what the players want. And the players, they don't want those stakes. Well, in their minds, like, man, I'm making 20, 30, 40, $50 million a year. I don't want to have to fight for this. I don't want to potentially lose a tooth for this. They're happy that the stakes have been lowered in men's basketball. Again, look at the load management. LeBron James just took, oh, my ankle's sore, let me take a game off. The players want it easier, and partially it's because the fans and the media don't demand that they do anything hard. We think it's our job, particularly at ESPN and particularly in legacy media, to hey, whatever the players want, we got to give it to them. And whatever we can do to make it easier on the players, we got to give it to them. They don't, Molly doesn't fully realize it, but she's typical feminist that doesn't want men challenged because she knows that challenges, rites of passages, the harder we make things for men, the stronger men become. She doesn't fully get all that. She's just caught up in safety, and she's probably sitting there as a woman. Well, I wouldn't want to fight. I could break my fingernails, or my eyelashes might fall out. She's just bringing that female mentality. And again, this is where I say you drop women into these conversations, and it just feminizes and softens the conversation, and no one can say what they really think. That no. The reason guys aren't fighting in the NBA is because the players don't want it. They want it soft and easy, and it's hurting the game.
Honestly, if Mad Dog was brave enough to ask her a follow-up question, I guarantee you Molly Karam would say, yeah, I think black players in the NBA, because it's a major black sport, them fighting, they be called gangsters and thugs. But white people are able to get away with it. And it's funny to me, Jason, I would love to be a fly on the wall for the production meetings for pretty much every major show at ESPN. I'm sure they're like, yeah, we got a few good storylines. This is the biggest hockey game we've seen since maybe the Miracle on Ice. People care about this more than the Stanley Cup. They cover the NHL and cover those big games. They have the broadcasting rights. And they get to a point where they're like, you know what? How can we make this about race? How can we racially divide people? How can we bring up black victimization? You know what? We'll send one of our feminists out there, one of our female hosts that can't give any good analysis about hockey, any good analysis about sports, but just keep the conversation going about race. But people are sick of it. I know we're going to talk about a little bit later. Everything is about race. And then I think people are realizing they just want to watch sports. It's about meritocracy, not diversity, equity, inclusion. It's not about black excellence. It's not about, elevating a certain race group over another. It's about, if you're the best player, you play. If you're the best coach, you coach. There's going to be people in the building tonight watching this hockey game. They have no idea how the people to their right and their left voted. They have no idea what their socioeconomic status is. They could probably guess because tickets are pretty expensive. But they're just there because they're rooting for this team or they're rooting for that team. That's sports. And people want to watch it because they got some national pride. And it's not about, I wish there was some more black representation out there on the ice. Then I'd be really excited about this game tonight.
John, let me ask you this, and let's be fair, or at least have the discussion, but in the interest of fairness. What Molly would probably argue, and what some people watching would argue, is like, hey, once the NBA had the Malice in the Palace, and Ron Artest and Steven Jackson, these guys went into the stands, that's when the NBA was like, hey, we got to crack down. We can't have disputes on the court because they bleed into, the stands. And I get that. But there's an animus in the NBA and throughout professional sports, but it's really, really acute and obvious in the NBA. And it's because of the way the arenas are set up in terms of fans can get courtside seats, hecklers can be heard very easily by the players, and hecklers can be heard in hockey, but there is glass separating the players from the fans. And so the NBA is a bit more intimate. And so this is why their entire effort is to turn down the temperature in basketball arenas. They don't want fans yelling certain things. The players seem to have a great deal of animus towards the fans, no respect for them. Is there an element of that within hockey, within the NHL, where the players have some animus and lack of respect for the actual fans in the arena?
Yeah, I think with hockey, it's a part of the game. Fighting's a part of the game. We just got to put that out there. That's been essential in hockey for a long time.
Different question, though. Hold on, I'm asking a different question, though. It's commonplace, in my view, for NBA players to express their animus towards fans. They talk about it in interviews. They'll tweet about, just what Kevin Durant just did. Hey, you don't like it? Go someplace else. What's the mentality of the average NHL player as it relates? Is there some animus? This is kind of pervasive throughout professional sports where the actual professional athletes don't like the fans. Is that true in the NHL?
I don't think so. I think there's more of a respect for fans in the NHL. They want to put on a good show, and you'll see with the last game, USA versus Canada, you got one of the smallest dudes on the ice fighting one of the biggest dudes for Canada. They don't care and they're just there to put on a good show. But I feel like it's tough, Jason, because you have the situations that happened to Kyrie Irving. You had people throwing stuff at him onto the court a few years ago in the NBA, and there's a major disrespect there. But I feel with everything becoming so corporate that you're not really seeing as much passion for the game, especially in the NBA. Like, I grew up in the Bay Area, Jason. Like, I went to Rorical. Like, that was the best place to watch basketball. It was unreal. And you got an absolute dump of Oakland, and then this little mecca if you will, right here. People were able to get away from the craziness of life in that area. And it wasn't about, what kind of corporate sponsors do we have? What kind of luxury seats do we have at this game? You have people there that are just excited to watch a game and motivated to cheer their team on. There's a lot more respect in the NHL for the fan base. And I think through that, you want to put on a better show because there's a respect and there's a camaraderie I feel like NHL players have with the fan base than you'll see in the NBA. I feel like you would notice with NHL players they're a lot more approachable. The game is a lot more approachable. NBA players, they're prima donnas. They're stars. They got their own companies. They got their own fashion lines. They got their big sponsorship deals. They want to feel like a big deal. They want to feel like a Hollywood star, and a lot of them are. You don't see that in the NHL, really. And I feel like that's why there's more of a connection and why you see maybe these guys want to put on a better show and respect the fans compared to Kevin Durant. That's like, brother, that's not what you're going to get. Just go watch hockey. We don't care.
I'm going to tell you why you're 1,000% right. And I'm not even trying to pick on LeBron James. I'm talking about this is the typical NBA player who's $15, $20 million a year, $30, $40 million a year just from the NBA. They got shoe endorsements and all this other stuff. But take LeBron James. He sees himself as an owner. He owns a stake in a Premier League soccer team. He's got his own media company. He sees himself as the equal of ownership. He sees himself as a king. And kings want to be treated royally. And when all the other players are basically mimicking LeBron and they all want to be the next LeBron James, that's how a Russell Westbrook, who's making $25, $35, $40 million a year, it's like, oh my God, a fan yelled something at me in Utah. How don't they they're not respecting me. They don't blah, blah, blah. He wants to be treated royally. A little kid touched him on the court and he scolded the kid and, there is a mentality. When you see yourself as an owner rather than a competitor, you see yourself as a CEO, you see yourself as royalty, there's a way you want to be treated that I do think is pervasive throughout the NBA. You're seeing it creep into the NFL. I don't watch a lot of baseball, but it's probably there too, where Shohei Ohtani and these guys are making incredible amounts of money. So it's probably creeping in there. I haven't been paying attention that closely to Major League Baseball, but I want to kind of wrap up the hockey discussion with this aspect. I actually think tonight there's far more pressure on Canada than Team USA. Yes, this game is in Boston. We got home ice advantage, and we should have obviously we'll have the crowd with us and all that. But to me, it feels like all the pressure is on Canada for the reasons you stated earlier. Haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1993. We just embarrassed them on Saturday. I think in some international competitions in recent years, we've been a little bit better than them. Hockey is their identity in Canada, and if we strip them of that, we might as well make them the 51st state. I think all the pressure is on Canada, and we're kind of playing with house money tonight.
100%. Just like you said, they haven't hoisted a Stanley Cup in 30-plus years. Our president is basically bullying Trudeau, who's now gone, and the entire country. They are booing our anthem, and we're responding by killing them on the ice. And then I think I'll finish with this, Jason. People want to watch this game because you have people like Matthew Tkachuk on Team USA. He goes to the White House with the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, respects the country, and says things like this when he's talking about this game tonight. We're the luckiest people in the world to be Americans and to grow up and live in this country. Now we have a chance to represent it at the biggest stage. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. This is why people are watching this game. This is why people in Canada, I don't think they're feeling the national pride like we do. We're talking about being in the golden age of the United States of America. People are fired up about Trump not being a weakling like we just have with Biden. Like, we're ready to dominate on the world stage. That's on the court, on the mat, in the field, and on the ice. Like, Canada's feeling it. All the pressure is on Canada. They need to win this game. I don't think technically Team USA needs to win this game. Canada needs to win this for pride in every sense of the word.
This is my final question on the hockey deal. I want to set an over-under on viewership. About 4.5 million watched last Saturday or this past Saturday when we beat Canada. We've had several days to hype this up. I think there's going to be a lot of attention on this. I'm going to set an over-under line at 7 million viewers tonight. It's on ESPN. If it was on ABC, I would go even higher. But I'm going to set the over-under at 7 million. Where's your money at, on the over or the under?
I'm putting the house down on the over. 100%. 100%. This has been hyped up by everybody. And even like we talked about, the NBA All-Star conversation has involved what's going on with the NHL and the Four Nations face-off. I'm putting the money down. Don't tell my wife that, though. I'm putting the money down. 100%.
Look, I'll say, if it goes over 7 million, if it flirts with 10 million, that's an incredible number for hockey. 4.5 million was an incredible number for hockey. Yeah. If somehow it goes over 7 million, what a great night. And I think it's something that hockey may be able to build off of, because once people get a taste, they're like, oh man, men are really competing again. And trust me, there will be some fights. There will be a lot of emotion. I can't imagine, unless somehow they just beat the brakes off of us and you know, they get up 3-0 early on. I just can't imagine this not being one of the great sports nights one of the great sports nights we've had in recent, because I'm trying to think of when's the last international type competition that really mattered. I'm talking about in any sport. In Dream Team, obviously, 1992, the Olympics, we all tuned in to watch our basketball team dominate. You know, I'm thinking of, and again, this was an international competition between two Americans, but this kind of reminds me of Nancy Kerrigan versus Tanya Harding. You know, these kind of special, unique events where you want to see two people that kind of don't like each other. And I can't even remember if, did Tanya Harding get booted before she got a chance to get... Anyway, when's the last international, you know, there was a time when, why can't I think of the name of the golf tournament between us and the Europeans? I can't. Oh, the Tiger and these guys. The Ryder Cup. There were some Ryder Cups for a few years that were a really, really big deal, but you know, they tried to make the women's it's easy. It's women's soccer. It's Megan Rapinoe and that group. The World Cup, that's been a super big deal. So maybe since the last time we had a U.S. soccer team, that the early stages of Brandi Chastain and all that group, that's what this reminds me of. Let me take a pause here. There's a couple other topics I want to cover with you, John. But before we do that, I want to talk to you all about what I've been doing, and you guys are very aware. You've heard me talk about my home renovation. You've heard me talk about trying to clean things up in 2025 and get organized and all my ducks in a row. I got a new accountant that's really, really helping me out and really helping me organize. I'm trying to take advantage of just everything and clean up the mess in my life and to make sure that all my I's are dotted, T's are crossed. I got a will, I got a trust, I got my LLCs set up properly. And that's why I'm so excited to be working with and have Trust and Will come on as a sponsor for the show. Trust and Will makes creating your will easy, like lounging on the couch easy. Keep your family prepared and protected by managing your will or trust online. Their simple step-by-step process guides you from start to finish, one question at a time. Save loved ones time and stress by having all your documents in one place with bank-level encryption. Live customer support is available through phone, chat, and email. Each will or trust is state-specific, legally valid, and customized to your needs. cares and wishes, nomination guardians, final arrangements, and power of attorney. Ensure your family and loved ones avoid lengthy, expensive legal proceedings or the state deciding what happens to your assets. Stand up and protect what matters most to you in minutes with Trust and Will. Go to trustandwill.com/fearless and get 10% off plus free shipping. That's 10% off and free shipping at trustandwill.com/fearless. Join me, guys, in organizing your life, doing your loved ones and family and friends a favor by getting organized. Trust and Will can help you do that. For those of you like myself, maybe you own property here, there, in several different locations. You don't have things organized. You're going to create a mess and double the heartache if something terrible happens to you and your loved ones are scrambling. And then, how many of you have seen families come completely apart at a funeral when people were fighting over what you didn't take care of or what they didn't take care of before moving on to the next life, before moving on to go home to Jesus? Anyway, take care of yourself. Trust and Will. That's trustandwill.com/fearless. John, let me return to you. There's a couple of other topics I want to discuss with you. You put out a very interesting tweet or post on X about a renaissance going on in sports for white athletes. And I know you're not a racial idolater. I think you're trying to make a point to like, hey, everybody's overdosing on black excellence and point at, they're the 4th black person to win the Super Bowl. They're the 28th black person to, make a basket while their eyelashes were falling off and their mother was at home taking care of their baby's mama. And you're mocking that, but you actually make a real point here about what's going on with white athletes. There seems to be a renaissance going on. And you made the point, this is after NBA All-Star Weekend, like, hey, the best dunker in the NBA or in basketball is some white dude, Matt McClung. Best player in the NBA, Nikola Jokic. Highest rated cornerback, the Dejon Cooper with the Philadelphia Eagles. Most popular player in American sports. In my view, you American rookie sport, talking about Caitlin Clark. College basketball's best player, Cooper Flagg. Just kind of goes on and on and on. We are in a renaissance of white athletes, and no one wants to talk about it, but we will here. What do you make of this?
I'll go back to my last point. Sports are about meritocracy, not diversity, equity, inclusion. DEI doesn't need to be in sports. I think the last time we saw a starting white cornerback in the NFL, I think it was Jason Sehorn. I might be off on that, but it's been about a couple decades. But for me, I'll point all these things out. I could care less what the color of the best players and most popular players are. People don't, even though Caitlin Clark's going to say, my white privilege played a role in this, even though it didn't, people like you more than A'ja Wilson because they see aspects of the NBA, an aspect of Steph Curry in you, an aspect of Kyrie Irving in you. You do something in the game that we haven't seen before. People are attracted to that. But for me, obviously, I'm going to throw that first tweet out there. I had a full thread because this is based off of ESPN posting just like you said, black excellence. Jalen Hurts is the 4th black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Everybody's saying it. You're saying it. TJ's saying it. Everybody's like, yeah, when does it end? 5th? 7th? 12th? Then we start getting into subcategories, like you said, the eyelashes. While somebody, under 6'4" and black won. But I think we need to look at people like Marcus Freeman that they're not bringing up his Asian descent. They're bringing up his blackness. You could be the first black coach to win a national championship in college football. I don't care about white excellence. I don't care about representation in sports. I just want to see the best players play. And I'm attracted, and you're attracted, and everybody listening to the show is attracted to the best players or the most unique players. Like, I loved Michael Vick growing up because he was unique. I've never seen something like that before. I've never been able to play Madden with somebody that seems like he's uncatchable. That's what we are attracted to in sports. And I don't care if ESPN's going to do a segment. I don't want them to do a segment about a white renaissance, white excellence, how whites are somehow taking over sports. I don't care. That's the main crux of the argument.
John, you didn't make this point, but I will, and the point is out there to be made. The real thing that you're pointing out, and again, I don't know the full history of Nikola Jokic, but I think the other people, and I've never done any sort of deep dive or shallow dive on Matt McClung. But when I looked at your post, the real message from that is kids from two-parent households excel at everything, including sports. And the marriage and the nuclear family is undefeated. And so we're used to a lot of single-parent kids dominating sports, and what's happening over time, you look at LeVar Ball and his three sons, you just look across the board, what's from Steph Curry, you can take just race out of it, from Steph Curry. The best fruit is coming from two-parent households, and it's starting to show up in athletics. It takes a lot of parental support to develop a high-caliber athlete, and it's great when groups like the Young Men's Christian Association, they don't call the YMCA that anymore, but we used to have the Catholic Youth Organization, and all these different evangelical places used to stand in the gap for single-parent homes and help develop these young athletes. And as the country's become more secular and people have started saying, hey, man, there's risk involved with dealing with, they're calling me racist if I provide too much help and all this. And so I think single-parent kids are starting to do less well in organized sports, and the kids from two-parent households are starting to blow past them, and that's the real. I look at Jalen Hurts. Comes from a traditional. I don't think we've had. Everyone wants to talk about authentically black. I don't think we've had anybody lead a team to a Super Bowl title that comes from a single-parent family, and we don't want to have that discussion because it's uncomfortable and it removes race, and it's you can't just blame people for being racist, but this life, including sports, rewards the nuclear family. That was the message I actually took unintentionally from your post.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's, I think, something that conservatives could hopefully write down themselves. We don't just need more babies. We need more families. When you have someone like Caitlin Clark that has both her mom and her dad coming to these games, and she's thanking her parents, not just like we're used to hearing, like you said, Jason, oh, man, my biggest idol is my mom. She's been there. And it's some of these single mothers are absolute heroes. They've done some great work. But we're going to change this country by honoring God. The family is a blessing. Children are a blessing. Be fruitful. Multiply. We got specific roles that we fill in the traditional family. Men need male role models in the home. There's a lot of things that we're seeing that these athletes are missing because they're trying to get what they can only get from a father from their mother. And you're spot on there. And I think that's what people are starting to realize. If we're going to see true revival in America and in sports, sports is a great reflection and maybe even a launching pad for making a difference in culture and society. We start seeing the Jalen Hurts, the Caitlin Clarks, even though obviously there's plenty of things we disagree there, people can start to realize, like, wow, their parents are a huge part of what they're doing here, huge part of the success. That's going to lead to Cooper Flagg saying, you know what, I don't necessarily need to chase the NBA money or the NBA fame. I might just want to stay at Duke for another year. I like it here. NIL money, I'm sure, is real nice. I'm sure his bank account is not struggling. But, that could be a testament to his parents. That could be a testament to the way he was raised, that I have a little bit more pride in playing for Duke and staying in college basketball and being a good steward of the legacy of college basketball than I am to just try to chase stuff as an individual.
Well, what Cooper Flag has the option to do, and someone hop in the chat, email me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure when I've looked at Cooper Flag, his parents are still together. Maybe I'm wrong. But what Cooper Flag has the opportunity to do is properly develop and not be shoved into a microwave. What have we seen for years from the top basketball players or some of these athletes that try to get to professional athletics as soon as possible? Oh, I got to take care of my family. I'm the man in my house. I got to retire my mother. I got to move her to a house and blah, 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 blah. Instead, Cooper Flag gets to be 19 years old because his mother, I believe, is still married to his father, and he doesn't have that pressure. He doesn't need to leave Duke and have arrested development for himself and take on the responsibility. I got to take care of my mother. I got to take care of my cousins. He comes from a nuclear family. There's a proper level of support. And now he has more options. And now he has the opportunity to fully develop before heading off into that NBA world. And I'm just, that's what the two-parent kids are getting that the single-parent kids aren't. And so when you, at 19, 20, 21 years old, you enter into professional sports, you enter into your professional career, and you have that pressure of not just competing at a high level, but now I'm responsible for my family and extended family and blah, blah, blah. Well, we wonder why some of these guys struggle with leadership. And when I'm talking about the quarterback position or any of this, they got too much pressure on them. They got too many other responsibilities pulling them away. And so a Jalen Hurts, great relationship with his dad, strong family, he can just concentrate on being the best Jalen Hurts that he can be. He didn't come into the NFL saying, oh man, I got to move mama up out the ghetto and buy her a house and, you know, my aunties and uncles. I can just concentrate on my career, and it's a blessing. And there was so much packed into your post on X, and I'm hoping I'm encouraging, repost it and post it and drive a conversation about the benefits of two-parent families. Everybody has access to this. That racism will not prevent you from staying in a marriage or marrying the spouse or marrying the mother or father of your child. Racism can't stop that. You know how I know that? Because coming out of slavery, you can look at all the statistics. Black people in the early 1900s, late 1800s, the marriage rate was there. And so there was more racism, but there was more marriage and more sticking together and development of kids. You have that opportunity. What you posted was so rich. And if ESPN were doing its job properly, if they really wanted to be the worldwide leader in sports and trying to understand what's going on in sports, they would be pointing to the fact of like, holy cow, look at this whole single parent deal is falling apart in sports. The expense, travel expense for kids to compete in summer basketball and 7-on-7, you need two parents to cover those expenses and for someone to be able to travel with the kid. Sports are leaning towards the two-parent households in a pronounced way that disrupts the norm.
And let me say this, Jason.
What had been the norm. Yeah.
And sorry to cut you off, but if ESPN's going to do their job, what do people love in sports? A good comeback story. The thing that resonates with people is not Jalen Hurts' blackness. He got benched in the national championship game. If you told this guy, and I know Joe Klatt actually had a really good take on this, but basically if Jalen Hurts could talk to his old self, the one that got benched for Tua Tagovailoa, who hasn't found anywhere near the success that Jalen Hurts has in the NFL, that, you know what, you're going to go from benched to Super Bowl champion. That makes a difference, ESPN. That resonates with people. That's what's going to make people enticed to following Jalen Hurts, being a fan of Jalen Hurts, in turn being a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. We don't tune in to listen about, hey, what's the racial division in the MVP race? And I know you've covered this at length, Jason, but people resonate with good stories. How can I relate to this person? How can I understand the challenge, the hero's journey? That's why people love watching movies and shows. This is a hero's journey. How did someone go from losing their great spot at the upper echelon of college football to becoming a Super Bowl champion? That's what I resonate with. That's the story I like. ESPN's not going to tell that story, though.
It's an and Tua Tagovailoa, from my understanding, best of my knowledge, comes from a great family, and he's overcoming a lot of things, and particularly a body that maybe isn't built for football, but he's toughing it out, and I'm sure his family's playing a role in that. So I'm not trying to denigrate Tua Tagovailoa at all. But you're 1,000% right. If the Jalen Hurts story is properly told, and they're trying to turn it into a story about he's got an all-female management team, trust me, that and I'm sure they're doing a great job, but they're working with great product in terms of Jalen Hurts. That survival story of what happened at Alabama to Jalen Hurts, I guarantee you his father played a major role in him surviving what happened and handling that situation in such an incredible way. That's a story about a father and son, and a father being there and helping his son see the opportunity and the comeback story. It's an incredible story, but that's not the story, we want to tell. We want to tell the baby mama story and how, mothers are the ultimate heroes. And I'm not trying to denigrate mothers. They play an important role, but we know what works in athletics. Fathers, we know that. It's undefeated. I've tried to explain, like, Irvin Magic Johnson comes from a great two-parent family situation. Michael Jordan, great two-parent family situation. It's the faces of these leagues, the guys that want to carry the responsibility. We just had Anthony Edwards say he doesn't want the responsibility of being the face of the NBA. He hasn't been prepared for it. It takes a father to prepare you for that. Magic took it on. Michael took it on. They were prepared by great families. It's a conversation that's long overdue, and to be pointed out in sports, it's unfortunate that it's not. And I'm telling you, we're seeing poor kids lose more and more opportunities, and single-parent kids lose more and more opportunities because we won't tell them the truth. We keep there's this magical mother that can do everything. And anyway, I want to get one more topic. I'm keeping you longer than I anticipated. I want to cover one more thing with you. Chris Kluwe, former NFL punter. He's been woke at least since 2012, 2013, 14, or whatever. He former NFL punter for the Minnesota Vikings. He got arrested protesting Donald Trump and calling everybody in MAGA Nazis. Let's play the clip of what happened with Chris Kluwe. I believe this is in the last 48 hours.
Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these past 3 weeks. MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence. MAGA stands for resegregation and racism. MAGA stands for censorship and book bans. MAGA stands for firing air traffic controllers while planes are crashing. MAGA stands for firing the people overseeing our nuclear arsenal. MAGA stands for firing military veterans and those serving them at the VA, including canceling research on veteran suicide. MAGA stands for cutting funds to education, including for disabled children. MAGA is profoundly corrupt, unmistakably anti-democracy, and most importantly, MAGA is explicitly a Nazi movement. You may have replaced a swastika with a red hat, but that is what it is. I will now engage in the time-honored American tradition of peaceful civil disobedience.
Get the heck. Get out.
Yeah, this LGBTQIA plus hill is the hill that Chris Kluwe's been trying to die on since, I believe, 2012, 13. And I believe it was early 2014, he wrote a piece for Deadspin about how he was mistreated by Leslie Frazier, who was the head coach of the Vikings at that time, his position coach, the special teams coach, I believe his name's Mike Prefer. Mike is now the special teams coach with North Carolina and Bill Belichick. But how, he took a stance in support of gay marriage, and the Vikings, Leslie Frazier, tried to talk him out of it. And then his position coach, the special teams coach, Mike Prefer, started making homophobic comments in Chris's mind. And he wrote all about this in Deadspin and kind of made himself a known, activist or whatever. So he's still dying on the same hill. Anyway, your thoughts on Chris Kluwe, and should we be paying attention to him? He clearly wants it. He's been seeking it. He wants to be, maybe he wants to be the gay Pat McAfee. I'm not sure, but I don't know. Your thoughts?
I think he's the white Colin Kaepernick. He was blackballed because he stood on truth, Jason. Come on. What a stunning and brave and courageous individual. Yeah, he's been pushing this stuff since 2014. And a little backstory for people. They're probably trying to figure out, like, what does this have to do with Huntington Beach? I guess Huntington Beach, they want to put a plaque in their local library to celebrate the library's anniversary, and it's going to be called the Magical, Alluring, Galvanizing, Adventurous. So it's basically describing, I guess, that, and I guess it's supposed to be a nod to MAGA. And they said, we want to honor the library, we want it to be a plaque, but we don't want MAGA on it. But let's go over this. I think if we go line by line, what he just said, MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence. Why don't we just go like Michael Knowles and say, I want to eradicate transgenderism? The idea of it. Nobody's saying we're looking for a genocide of trans people. But when Trump comes out and says, you know what? I stand by what Genesis 1:27 says. God created us male and female. So that one's false. MAGA stands for resegregation and racism. He's got to read up on his history. That's exactly what the Democrats did. MAGA stands for censorship and book bans. Who is getting censored? Conservatives. What books are we banning? I don't know how graphic we can get on the show, Jason, but you literally have books.
Graphic.
You have books in children's libraries telling them how to have anal sex, talking about pornography, pushing pedophilia. I don't want those books around, but if you're going to act like that's the same thing as what Hitler was doing during the Nazi regime, another false statement. Obviously, he tries to politicize planes going down, which is pretty insensitive. And then he says that MAGA stands for cutting funds to education, including disabled children. Democrats have been killing disabled children in the womb by the hundreds of thousands for years. So spare me the idea that you really care about disabled children. And then talking about anti-democracy, what they just did with Kamala Harris, just plugged her in without the public getting a say at all. Everything he claimed is what the Democrats do. Everything he claimed is obviously against what God wants for a thriving society and a righteous society. This guy literally came out and said that I am going to stand on the hill of LGBTQ idolatry. I will bow down to this idol, and I will try to do everything I can to please this idol. It's exactly what we have in America. That's what we saw with the last regime in the White House. And he's been pushing this stuff for a long time, like you said. I was looking up, CNN had a funny article in 2014 that said sports are still homophobic in 2014. Aaron Rodgers had to come out and diffuse some gay rumors. Brittany Griner just came out in 2013. This guy really does think that he is the white Colin Kaepernick, that he got blackballed by the NFL, and that he's really doing something good for society. But he's lost.
John, I want to thank you for the visit. Great job. John, I'm going to warn you. I think if the hockey game goes as well as I think tonight, we're going to invite you back to talk a little bit about what we see tonight. So I hope we can fit that into your schedule. I'm going to leave the audience with this question. Would you rather be gay Pat McAfee or white Colin Kaepernick? We'll use that as a poll question. I may ask Steve Kim about it. I'm going to put it on my X feed. Is Chris Kluwe, gay Pat McAfee, or white Colin Kaepernick, and which one would you rather be? That's a very tough question. But anyway, thank you, John. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Awesome job. Appreciate it. Hey, guys, I want to tell you about this awesome opportunity we have with the continuation of Roll Call 3.0, just around the corner, a little more than 2 months away, May 2nd and 3rd, right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Tucker Carlson's joining me. It's going to be an amazing weekend. Saturday, we want you there at Roll Call. We want you to hear the great lineup of speakers we have, from Pastor Doug Williams to Pastor Corey Brooks. Corey Brooks and his guys are coming down from Chicago. Mervyn Mayo is going to be singing. E.W. Jackson's going to light the house on fire. Alan Jackson, my friend in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, he'll be there speaking. Anthony Walker, you guys see Anthony here every week. He'll be there speaking. It's going to be amazing. Go to fearlessrollcall.com right now. Make sure, look, we got events for your wife, for your girlfriend. Bring a date. Friday night, we got you covered. Me and Tucker Carlson, Steve Byrne, the comedian. Saturday night, we got you covered. Party for us post-roll call at my friend Lee Beeman's estate. It's going to be amazing. The food, the music, the whole 9 yards. Fearlessrollcall.com. It's just $100 right now to attend Saturday's all-day event. Just $100. The early bird sign up. Go to Fearless Roll Call right now. fearlessrollcall.com. $100 gets you in Saturday all day for the amazing event. We got the VIP events also there for you. Go check it out. When we come back, star of the show, Steve Kim. Next. Welcome to Jason Whitlock Harmony, JWH, where we will, Tennessee Harmony will live moving forward.
There is a possibility of violence. Sometimes the devil will act so ugly that you have no other choice but to get violent and fight.
Well, he's doing a good job using great rhetoric, right? He's using language to draw lines, battle lines, in fact, and he's creating a boogeyman.
But again, we get that exempt status because we are a religious institution. This is not religious now. This is not gospel backed. This is just you being political.
To the new channel, hope that you tell people to come find us over here at the new channel. That's youtube.com, JWH. Become a subscriber, hit the likes button. Let's get this channel and this conversation, and particularly Tennessee Harmony, something I think we've all grown to love and appreciate for the past 3.5, 4 years. We want to take it to bigger and better things. All right, welcome back. Time for the Korean Cosell. Cosell, I'm going to start where I ended with John Root. If you had a choice, who is Chris Kluwe and who would you rather be? Gay Pat McAfee or white Colin Kaepernick? That's gonorrhea and syphilis there. Go ahead. You decide.
I was thinking about this as you played that. And I thought of Alex Stein, our guy, Primetime Stein. You know the difference is, though? Alex is trying to be funny. We're actually in on the joke with him. And yes, can I say it that Chris Kluwe got the boot? But yeah, what would I rather be? That's a tough one. I'm going to have to table that. By the way, great discussion with John Root. I felt like I was in the penalty box for about 65 minutes. I'm going to make a special announcement for you and the Fearless audience. This is what I do. I make the big bucks here. This is going to come up in our renegotiation for my next contract. I'm going to watch that hockey game tonight. I'm going to do it for you, Whitlock. I'm going to watch it. I was going to watch some NFL films, the best of John Facenda. But you know what? I have all off season. I'm gonna watch. I guess it's on ESPN at 5 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you one thing right now. If the quality of the forechecking is not to my standards, I can't tell you I'm gonna be there beyond the first period. but I'm going to watch the game. Okay, are you happy now, Black Don Cherry? Good grief, the things that I
Well, I think, Steve, what I would be happy about, we're sports fans over here. When great things happen in sports, we pay attention so we can evaluate it. So I would love to make you a sports fan again. Maybe I'll get T-shirts, make Steve Kim a sports fan again.
I am. What are you talking about? I am a sports fan, except I have standards.
No, you're a football fan.
Excuse me.
A football and boxing fan. Yeah.
I have a Marvin Hagler shirt on. Okay, so let's not get that. But by the way, one other thing about your discussion with John Root, you're talking about white cornerbacks. It got me thinking. What a great movie. And I'm sure this is where Cooper DeJean was inspired. All the Right Moves. Remember that movie with little Tom Cruise playing a shutdown corner?
I do remember.
Type. And Coach Nickerson didn't take the safety, but they played the 6'1" stack monster. And Sean Penn's brother was a Division I linebacker. He knocked up a girl, so he couldn't go. They don't make movies like that anymore. But go ahead, get on with my show.
They really don't.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a movie I could rewatch and still enjoy, I think. And maybe I will do that. Steve, Bill Belichick in the news cycle a bit. USA Today writing a piece that alleges that the North Carolina Board of Trustees, let me read directly, we already saw the power play by the North Carolina Board of Trustees forcing athletic director Bubba Cunningham to hire Belichick and throwing ridiculous amounts of money at a sport that prior to this offseason was treated as a functional distraction by those same board members until basketball tipped. That's $25.3 million annual investment in football before player procurement, revenue sharing, and NIL agreements. The total investment could surpass $40 million.
Wow.
And so, Steve, my initial thoughts in reading that was like, because Bubba Cunningham used to be the athletic director at Ball State. I know Bubba Cunningham, or I used to know him pretty well, still consider him a friend. It doesn't make sense to me that he would have to be forced to do that, but I think Matt Hayes, I believe, who wrote this story for USA, he's pretty solid. But it may be an indication of like there's so much upside and money in football and so little upside and money in college basketball that even a school like North Carolina would eventually have to prioritize football above basketball.
Yeah, I mean, all Bill Belichick had to say about this is, we're focusing on Wake Forest. Got any Wake Forest? But Jason, this is about football is king. I don't know if Donald Trump is king. I know football is king when it comes to college sports. And with all of this realignment taking place, a basketball program is important. And Carolina is absolutely in the Mount Rushmore of blue bloods in that sport. The home of Michael Jordan, Dean Smith, national titles, Final Fours. They've placed a great emphasis on it. But in the new era of college sports, where it's now basically becoming a semi-pro thing, and you have to be in a super conference, and the ACC is wavering in terms of, is there even going to be an ACC in 10 years? You better have a football program that is attractive to either the SEC and the Big Ten. And academically, UNC checks all the boxes. But Jason, I go back to this. I don't know if you ever saw the 30 for 30 on the Big East basketball, the rise and the downfall. It's called Requiem for a Big East. It produced about 8 years ago. I got nostalgic and I watched it about a month and a half ago. I was bored. And it always struck me the last part where they had the last true Big East tournament. And when Syracuse, of all the teams, left that conference, and Jimmy Boeheim, I don't think he was ever quite the same. And at that press conference inside the Madison Square Garden, someone asked him, well, Jim, why is all of this happening? And Jim said, come on, you know why. It's football. Jason, football in college sports is king.
So, there's another way to look at this story. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I made that suggestion. But there's another way to look at this story. If, let's say, Bubba Cunningham went along with what his board wanted to do and he had to do. But for this story to be coming out at this time, and for, again, the story was larger than just this aspect of it, but it's a part of it. I'm almost wondering if, and have not spoken to Bubba Cunningham, I have no insight into this. I'm just reading the tea leaves. When I look at Bill Belichick, who spent the offseason going to NFL events with his Super Bowl rings on his hand and his 24-year-old girlfriend or 25-year-old girlfriend, whatever, if I'm Bubba Cunningham, I actually like this story coming out. Because if this thing with Bill Belichick blows up and it's like, hey, this guy's really not into college football, he's just angry at the NFL, and he's making sure he's at NFL events and showing off his Super Bowl rings, and maybe he's going to do 1 year here and dash back to the NFL, or maybe his heart really isn't into it, or maybe people are like, man, this guy's got this 24-year-old girlfriend and he's running around half naked with, and he's talking about maybe getting engaged. If I'm Bubba Cunningham, I like that this story came out because I'm on record. I think this is going to be a failure. I don't think Bill Belichick is properly motivated and or focused. He's got a little sugar baby that has most of his focus, and the other half of his focus is on how can I get back at the NFL.
Jason, that's one way to look at it, but I'll do the other side. This is a siren signal or siren call to all the people, all the young players, all the recruits, everyone in football. North Carolina is now a serious football program. We are throwing resources and money into it. We are no longer thinking about it as just the off season before basketball. The reality is this, Jason, and I learned this about 20 years ago, and I've learned more and more about it as my beloved Miami Hurricanes have just floundered. If your upper levels of your universities that go far beyond the athletic department, I'm going all the way to the school president, the provost, the board of directors, the trustees, and the people that really throw in the money. If there's not an alignment philosophically that, hey, football is important to us and we're going to invest in it, and it's not just a game, the way Alabama and a lot of other SEC schools, I would say Texas, certainly Ohio State, now Michigan, they're all in on the NIL program. You have to have a lockstep. You cannot have certain people that think, oh, it's just sports or we don't want football to become too important. No, the reality is running a university is a business. And one of the biggest drivers from a public relations standpoint and economically, okay, then you put in the mix of the conference realignment. Football is no longer just an extracurricular activity or just a sport. It is a vital part of most universities that care about this stuff.
Steve, let me throw another topic out at you. William C. Rhoden.
Your guy.
You remember William C. Rhoden?
Your guy. Used to be buddies.
Used to work at the New York Times.
Used
Sports reporters, all of that. He has got a solution for NBA All-Star Weekend that I had not thought of. We could just turn it into a celebration of Black history. Let me read from Bill Rhoden's column. Next year, the iconic Harlem Globetrotters will celebrate the team's 100th anniversary. The NBA should acknowledge the Globetrotters' anniversary in its showcase game by returning to the East-West format and by naming the teams Team Globetrotters and Team Wrens in honor of the New York Renaissance, the first Black-owned professional basketball team. Each team would wear the Globetrotters and Wrens uniforms. He says later in it, hey, we should just lean into this celebration of Black History Month and Black history. Steve, well, that'll fix it. I mean, everybody, and maybe Bill, I think you left this out. If they could just start, or maybe sing during commercial breaks, the Black National Anthem between timeouts and commercial breaks, that also would help. What do you think of Bill's solution here? Best one you've heard so far?
Well, it's ironic because both teams, or all the teams this year, played like the Washington Generals. Look, I actually, celebrating and paying tribute to the Harlem Globetrotters is a good idea. They're the greatest worldwide basketball ambassadors ever, especially prior to the 80s. I'm a fan of theirs. Okay, they should be celebrated. But I also agree, go back to the East-West format, get the best 24 players. But again, until you get players to buy in and play hard and give an effort, it doesn't matter. You cannot overcome that flaw. Now, Jason, I also think that Rhoden said, well, this is about entertainment, not sports and competition. Jason, why can't it be about both? We watch sports and are entertained by competition, by world-class athletes. That is a cop-out just to say, well, just make it all about entertainment and make it an award show. Make it basically the Grammys with a basketball. Really? See, that once you start lowering the standards...
That's what they've done already.
I agree. And so this is like when they're saying, well, our students are passing, so let's just lower the standards for everybody. No more AP classes, no more honors. Great. What do us Asians do? We can't play basketball. I don't, this is ridiculous what we're doing here. I don't get this pity party that we throw for athletes and specifically the basketball players. Jason, the last I checked, they are not going into a coal mine. They are not climbing skyscrapers to clean the windows. They're not doing any hard labor. They're not digging ditches. They are playing a game. And now they don't play a lot of back-to-backs. They don't do the 4 games in 5 nights. They travel in luxury. They stay in 5-star hotels. I don't get why suddenly playing basketball has become this arduous task. And get this, Jason, these multi-$100 million contracts are guaranteed. Also, I have another question. How many guys have actually been injured in an all-star game ever that missed significant time? Can someone tell me? When?
It hasn't happened. It doesn't happen. There are few, very few career ending or really career changing injuries. There's not a bunch of Gale Sayers walking around from playing basketball. There's not a lot of Terrell Davises. It just doesn't happen. It's a joke. And the whole, this entire conversation about entertainment, and they've already destroyed NBA All-Star Week. It's like, did Bill Rhoden just watch what Kevin Hart just did? There was more focus on Kevin Hart and all the stuff going on off the court. Someone did a little, like a study and went through the clock and how much time was spent on Kevin Hart and everything that had nothing to do with actual basketball play, and how much time there was actual basketball on the court. And it was way out of balance. And I'm just sorry, Kevin Hart can be funny, but a lot of times he's just not that funny. Some of the jokes were inappropriate, and then he just wasn't that funny. They've already made a mess of the All-Star Weekend and putting more focus on celebrating the past. Man, we're going to see it tonight with the NHL. Put the focus on the game. We're all looking forward to the game. I have no idea who's singing the national anthem. I have no idea who's performing between periods in the game. There will be no comedian host. The game is going to carry the event tonight. That's what the NBA has gotten away from.
Wait a minute. You're telling me they're not going to have Gilbert Gottfried do a running commentary throughout the game? I mean, here's the thing about Kevin Hart. Very successful. But there's a term, less is more. There's a time and a place. It's like when you go to the restaurant. Like I go to field trainings, I always get the calamari. The best calamari I've ever had is at field trainings. But you know what? That's an appetizer. I don't have calamari throughout my dinner. It's not my main plate. Okay, I usually get the New York strip, by the way. But the problem is, once you allow the genie to slip out of the bottle, it's gone for good. You could bring back David Stern at this point. I do not believe you can even get the audience back. Jason, I've been reading tweets that there has been another precipitous decline in television ratings. Now, I get it. The homers will say, well, it's just television ratings. They don't mean as much. Okay, I get it. There's streaming. There's other ways of watching it. Jason, do you notice how when it comes to the Super Bowl, the NFL, they don't ever say, well, it's just television ratings? There's a reason. They actually still get an audience that is commensurate to what they were getting 10, 15, 20 years ago. The NBA is not. That's been proven a time and time again.
Well, it's even worse than what you're arguing, Steve. Because I think the All-Star game got 4.7 million viewers on average, I think. And it's the second worst of all time. Only 2023 was worse. Only 2023 was worse. But here's what makes it worse. If they did the counting in 2023 the way they do now, this out-of-home monitoring that they allegedly have. And so these numbers are elevated, the 4.7. And so if the same system was in place in 2023, there would have been more viewers counted in 2023. So we have a 13% fall from last year's All-Star game. And it barely beat out 2023 when there was a different accounting system that always lowered the number. The NBA is in free fall. There's no question about it. With all this out-of-home monitoring and all this other stuff, the NBA should be just like the NFL and virtually everything. They should be setting new records because they figured out a way to count more people. NBA has a problem. I will say this again. Tonight, though, proves there are solutions. If you can get the athletes to compete, and Steve, I'll end our discussion by talking about this. When Joe Mazzulla said, hey, man, they need to allow fighting back in the NBA.
Yes.
It wasn't some preposterous statement. He wasn't trying to be provocative. Fighting elevates competition. And if there's the threat of like, hey, man, we may have to come to blows to settle this, it elevates the competition. It raises the stakes. They've eliminated that from basketball, and it shouldn't be surprising that the competition has waned.
Jason, the American public, and especially a lot of the media, are hypocrites. Every time we see a brouhaha, a bench-clearing brawl, we all pretend because we feel as though we're supposed to be outraged. I'm so honest, I say, wow, that was refreshing. That was rather invigorating. I remember watching when SportsCenter did a whole hour on the Malice at the Palace. I thought that was one of the greatest bits of entertainment. I thought that NBA was fantastic. I remember when Kevin Johnson and Greg Anthony got into a fight during one of those games in '93. I think Greg Anthony actually came off in street clothes to clock Kevin Johnson, total cheap shot. I remember the Celtics and Lakers actually getting into a fight before the 85-86 season. Mo Lucas got into it when he was a new Laker. And everyone thought, wow, that is great. We're seeing men with testosterone. We're seeing passion. We are hypocrites. Every time there's a bench-clearing brawl or a fight, we all are entertained. Now, if you're in that front row getting trampled, maybe that's a little bit scary, but hey, you know what? You'll never forget that experience. I completely agree because it's actually a symbol that people are competing and that they have a passion and they like it. So yes, more fighting. Joe Mazzulla, that's the guy that should replace Adam Aluminum as our commissioner.
And this is where people get upset with me because I take it all the way to the extreme and tell you the whole truth. You drop women into all these debate shows and they're all over social media, and now you have the sensibilities of women injected into male sports. Women don't enjoy fighting nearly as much as men. They don't want to see it. They don't want to envision themselves in a fight. And so when you drop a Molly Karam or Mina Kimes or any of these people, oh God, that's so violent. They shouldn't do it. It's unbecoming, blah, blah, blah. If it were just men having this discussion about sports, we would have never gotten to this place where we think fighting is the worst thing on the planet and how dare these athletes come to blows. You need that
Jason,
element to keep men on edge and to make them really compete.
Jason, one thing you and John talked about, why is fighting in hockey? Well, I had an explanation, and they've talked about this. You need to have fights because it actually keeps the game cleaner. That with guys using sticks, there are certain guys that know how to use that stick, and you have to keep the peace. It actually makes the game, this is an ironic statement, actually gets it to be a little bit safer and cleaner. And look, every team had an enforcer, whether it was Marty McSorley, Dave Semenko, Bob Probert. And those guys were like the sharks of the ocean or the policemen. And they actually said the game would become more dangerous with the stick play if you didn't have a few guys that could rough guys up. So that's stuff, and again, people may agree or disagree, but that's what people that played hockey have said for years. Also, before I leave, I want to mention this. 1984, Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. Padres Braves. Folks, look that up on YouTube. Greatest bench clearing brawl I have ever seen in that sport. I say one of the 3 greatest moments in Padre history. It's the 84 World Series, 98 National League Championships, and that brawl. Champ Summers, what a guy. He wanted to kill somebody.
When I think of baseball brawls or fights, isn't there some moment where Nolan Ryan has someone in a headlock and he's just
Robin
pummeling
Ventura.
them?
Here's what happened.
Yeah.
Ventura gets drilled in the back. So he rushes, and halfway through, he's like, wait a minute. I can't rush Nolan Ryan. He's an American hero. He's an icon, and he's near 50. Except he didn't realize Nolan Ryan was one of the top 5 toughest guys. To this day, he'd still beat people up. To this day, he still throws 91 miles per hour. So he hesitated. Too late. It was over. And he had to take it. And they've tried to interview Robin Ventura for that. He will not do it. I don't blame him. Yeah.
Steve, great job. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Go U.S.
Awesome. There we go. Everybody's watch party tonight. Make sure you guys continue to watch this show because tomorrow we're going to play Listen or Lose with 3 of our guests. Our returning champion, I believe Johnny Washington, will be here versus 2 others. You still have a chance to sign up. Go to LOLonfearless@gmail.com. Email me, LOLonfearless@gmail.com. You got a chance to win $100 in Bitcoin from the Fold app. Go to the Fold app right now, foldapp.com/Whitlock. That's WHITLOCK. Foldapp.com/Whitlock. Sign up for the Fold app. That way, if you win, listen, or lose, we can pay you $100 in Bitcoin. You don't want to miss it. All you got to do is answer some trivia questions. Make sure you're watching this week's show. We'll give you some trivia questions. Whoever gets the most right wins $100 in Bitcoin. We play the game every Friday. Hope you'll be there. Hope you hit me up in email. We will see you tomorrow with some Listen or Lose. Don't go anywhere. Shamika Michelle, we're going to talk about Lizzo and her stunning weight loss. Next. The NBA is dead domestically. LeBron James killed it. His mentality, his approach. Charles Barkley pointed a finger at Draymond Green and his generation. That includes LeBron James. Let me defend LeBron and his generation to some degree. Because Barkley and the previous generation are all pointing a finger and like, yeah, you guys did this. And they're right. But they may be missing the fact that if they were making $30, $40 million a year, $50 million a year, shoe contracts putting an additional $20, $30 million in their pocket, insider trading and all the stuff they've been let in on and making all of that money and considering themselves business moguls. I think Charles Barkley and his generation would behave the exact same way. There's too much money in sports. If I were LeBron James and had 60, 70 million social media followers who are constantly feeding me, guys, you're great, constantly in my DMs, you're the best, LeBron. Oh, LeBron, you farted and it smelled like roses. If I had that constant drumbeat of affirmation and dopamine, I would lose my mind as well. All right, welcome back. Time for Shamika Michelle. Shamika, let's get right to it. We got 2 topics I want to cover with you. I want to start with Lizzo. There's less Lizzo than ever before. Have you seen the pictures? Can we put a picture of Lizzo up? She's got her back end out. For the first time, I can actually look at Lizzo's back end without wanting to gag. Lizzo's losing weight. I can do nothing but applaud it and say, Lizzo, thanks for inspiring me. This is awesome. She's looking better. I gave an estimate early in the show. is she hovering around 205, 210? What's your best estimate on where Lizzo is right now?
She's still fat to me. I'm not good at the numbers though. But I do think she looks good, and I'm glad that she's coming down on her weight. I think it's the best decision she could have made. I do think it's a lot more healthy, no matter how much she tried to pretend that she was comfortable in her own skin, wrapped in all that fat. I just never really bought it. And I do think that she decided, let me get serious about losing weight instead of promoting obesity, because that's what she was doing. She had a whole show, Make Way for the Big Girls or something like that, where she auditioned fat backup dancers and just really applauded them for being so fat. I am so glad that she decided that wasn't the way to go.
I'm happy too. It puts more pressure on me. I don't want to live in a world where Lizzo is in better shape than me. I don't want to live in a world where Lizzo could crack fat jokes on me and I would have nothing to say in response. The other thing that I got to say is, like, Lizzo, underneath that that's a pretty woman. And in about 50 more pounds, that's going to be a really, really attractive woman. I'm telling you, I wasn't expecting that, but you know, I think a lot of people get so lost in the sauce and all this body positivity. That's always been a scam. You can't be that obese and say, there's nothing positive about being that obese, and I don't understand why people promoted that, other than maybe they want people to die. And literally, seriously, and you know, I can never. When I was living out in L.A., Lizzo showed up to some Lakers game in some outfit with her bottom line ass out, and it was like, who's paying her to do this? Who's paying her to normalize this? Who wants that to happen? So yeah, hats off to Lizzo. Shamika, should we credit Lizzo fully, or do we have to? What percentage of credit do we have to give Ozempic?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a little bit under the weather, but Ozempic, we know. I credit her for making the decision, but I just feel like if this was something she could have done on her own, she would have done it a while ago. I know that Ozempic is so popular right now. People are promoting Hydroxycut, and I talked to someone who is on Ozempic, and they said you can still be toned if you're working out. So I know, we see people like Oprah, but she's 70. Of course, she's going to be sagging. But I do think Lizzo is actually working out. And then she has the money to do any type of liposuction. She's not touring or doing any type of music right now. She's kind of been quiet ever since the whole sexual assault stuff came out on her. So she's had the time to actually do something about her weight and her body. And so I do think she's had some help. But I applaud her, but I think she's had some help.
I want to ask the question to the chat in the comments. Who gets the most credit here, Lizzo or Ozempic? Sounds like, Shamika, you're going to lean Ozempic. I'm going to lean Lizzo. I think there's a chance Lizzo's doing this on the up and up, or at least I hope so, because it'd be more inspiration for me. And so as I continue to address my way, I don't want any accusations of Ozempic playing any role in I'm a pureblood. I didn't take the vaccine, and I'm not taking Ozempic. I just want to state that for the record early on. But I want to hear from you all. Who's more responsible, Ozempic or Lizzo? Let me move on, Shamika, because Dr. Umar Johnson has said something that I agree with, and something we've been saying on this show. He's saying that Obama was a plant for the LGBTQIA plus silent P crowd. Let's play the clip.
One of the reasons Barack Obama was made president is so he could normalize the LGBTQ agenda in the black community. Think about it. If George Bush tried to push homosexuality in the black community, we would have rejected him.
Of course.
If Donald Trump tried to push homosexuality in the black community, we would have rejected him.
Of course.
You could only normalize that through a blackface.
Through a black man.
Obama was made president to make it normal. When Barack Obama became president, homosexuality was not a mainstream issue, nor was it accepted as a mainstream alternative to the traditional family.
I gotta look at
By the time he left office in 2008, they were completely running everything.
Was
and
that
if
the
you
year?
even disagreed with, I'm gonna give you an example.
It is.
I do
You
a
might
lot
be
of
right.
graduation speeches, right? At the June.
Okay.
Elementary school, middle school, high school. I normally do about 20 graduation speeches a season.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
When Barack Obama was president, I might have did 5. It dropped significantly. Schools who I normally did their commencement, they was calling me up, Dr. Umar, we can't have you speak this year. Why? The LGBTQ say you don't agree with them, you can't speak. I said, but this is a graduation speech. This ain't politics. This is motivation. Get ready for the rest of your life. What does LGBT got to do with my 10-minute speech motivating these 12th graders to make sure you do well in college? Well, we have LGBT teachers and they saying you're insensitive and you're homophobic. So I saw how not agreeing with the lifestyle could limit your opportunities in life. You had people getting fired from jobs, not for pushing hate, because I don't agree with hate. I don't agree with the lifestyle. But I don't want harm for any human, no matter what their situation is.
That's the way to do it.
But the way that they did it was the LGBTQ said, to disagree with me is to hate me. They created a narrative that if you disagree, you support violence against me. You don't want us to work. You want us to be shot, killed, man. We never said that.
That's ridiculous.
We just said we don't agree with the lifestyle. But they turned it into a whole campaign against anybody who disagreed with it. And that's another reason why a lot of people didn't vote for Kamala Harris, black men, because they got tired of the effeminization. And then they took it to Africa. Obama started it. He went to Africa. He went to Liberia. He went to Rwanda, a couple other places. He said, if you don't legalize gay marriage, we cutting off your aid.
That's some of the best work I've ever heard from Umar. It's why, you know, Umar will do some silly things, say some things I disagree with, and who knows what he's done with the money for his schools, and I don't say that in a disparaging fashion, but Umar says a lot of things that I disagree with, but he also says a lot of things that I have to just tip my hat and say, hey, man, I appreciate you saying that, because that breakdown of the consequences of not being on board with the LGBTQIA plus silent P alphabet mafia agenda. That's what no one ever wants to talk about. And like me doing this show the way that I've done it, I know the consequences in terms of, I'm untouchable. I'm reviled in legacy media because the gay crowd has so much influence over human resources departments throughout corporate America that, you know, I'm as toxic and as nuclear as you could possibly be. And it does cost you opportunities. And you sit around and you wonder why Stephen A. Smith or some of these other people, it's like they always tip their hat and bow to the transgenders and the gay deal and all this other stuff, because they know that's the only way to keep the money flowing. And Umar just pointed it out in a hats off to Umar. Anyway, your thoughts, Shamika.
I completely agree with him in this take also, Jason. I can remember it was like 2015, 2016. I did a video and it was titled, "Get This Gay SHIT Off TV," because I remember watching Empire during this time and they had so many gay scenes. Like there was one scene where a spouse or a partner, whatever, walked in on his other partner who was on his knees and the guy's pants were open. For me, I was like, this is regular TV. Why is this coming on at 8 o'clock on a Thursday Kids are still awake. This is not cable TV or what was known as cable TV back in the day. This is so wrong. And I can remember people coming after me, being so upset that trans Madison something, she came after me. Video just went viral. But my problem was during this time, during Obama's second term, is when I began to see it was rampant and it was all over the place. And they were asking kids in school, what do you want to be called? A she or a he? And they were saying, are you a prince or are you a princess? And you don't give young children that choice. And it was like out of nowhere. And as he said, George Bush wasn't pushing that. It was pushed under Obama. The whole legalization of gay marriage, this was all Obama. And that's what kind of began to open my eyes, because of course I was one of the ones in 2008 that voted for Obama simply because he was Black. I fell for it. And then during his second term, I was thinking something's not right. And that's what it was for me. It was the whole LGBTQ agenda that, you know, he was pushing. I think he was the first president that lit the White House in rainbow or whatever. It was ridiculous and it was all over the place. And as a mom who had kids in school at the time, it really upset me. So I appreciate Umar for saying this. And I do understand and I agree with what he's saying. They come after you. If you just say anything against it. I did a video against Nas X when he did the whole devil video and had the shoes with the blood in it.
Lil Nas X.
Yeah, Lil Nas X. I lost my privilege to go live on Instagram because I came out and said something against that. And to me, that was demonic. I had every right to say something, but I lost my privilege for over a year to go live on Instagram just because I spoke out about it. So hats off to Umar because he's right.
Listen, the point you're making about how pervasive it became in television shows. And so virtually every TV show, even before Obama, I would have to go look and see. So help me out here, guys. I'm going to look, but you guys look as well. What year did The Sopranos debut? And what year did The Wire debut? Because I'm a big fan of the HBO TV shows, you know, from The Sopranos, The Wire, going all the way back to the Larry Sanders Show. But I would watch them all. And like HBO had, what was it, Big Love, the show about Mormons. I'd watch them all. And, but there was a couple that I would not watch because it's like, I can't. There was a show, 6 Feet Under. I don't know if everybody says 6 Feet Under is great. I think I watched the first 1 or 2 episodes. There was some gay couple on there, and they were showing them in bed, and I was like, deuces, I'm out. I can't do it. And I think even before maybe 6 Feet Under, whatever year Oz came out. I used to love prison movies, Brubaker, anything about prison. You know, I'm Shawshank Redemption. I like prison movies. But Oz went way too far with the gay sex, and I was like, I'm out. And but what I figured out is that even with a show like The Sopranos, which debuted in 1999, and so that's before Obama, but by season 6 or 7, I don't know what year this was, they introduced the gay mobster deal, Johnny Cakes. Big overweight, Vito, I think was his name. And this whole season, I think it was season 6, was dominated by Johnny Cakes and being like, oh man, they done snuck this into The Sopranos. And now even when I look back at The Wire, which is my favorite TV show of all time, and I'll stand by that, it's a great show. But they intentionally made the 2 most heroic characters, Omar Little, I don't know if you watched this, The Wire, Omar Little, and then this black woman cop, Kima. They were the most righteous and ethically, both of them was gay. And this is not by accident. And so when you thought about the people that had the most integrity, as it relates to the wire. It was the Umar, the gunman that robbed people and was the honorable drug robber or whatever, and then Kima, the cop. These were the most honorable, ethical people. And I was like, this isn't by accident. So for me, I can love The Wire, continue to watch it, and The Wire had great impact on my worldview. And at that time, in whatever years this was in the early 2000s, I got to say The Wire was effective in influencing me into thinking like, yeah, we just got to be more accepting of the LGBTQIA, blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking that because I had so much respect for Omar Little. And so the programming and the manipulation has always been there. And so now I've reached the point, and maybe I've just gotten too righteous, too old, too fuddy-duddy. I want to see no sex in none of these TV shows or movies. It's all pointless. It's all unnecessary. Don't show me heterosexual sex. Certainly don't show me gay sex. But I get uncomfortable. Even when it's heterosexual sex, I'm just like, why are they doing this? This is a waste of time. I don't,
Yes.
they can just retire to the bedroom and we know what goes down. I'm old enough. I don't need to see it.
Right.
But anyway, they have been very, very calculated and intentional about mainstreaming the whole homosexual agenda. They did it with Obama. They did it with television shows. And thank God for Umar calling out. Shamika, final thought, and we'll wrap up the show.
No, I was going to say, I agree with you as far as we don't have to see any type of sex. I remember watching the Brady Bunch, and Carol and Mike would get in the bed together, and we saw nothing. We saw nothing happen with Bill Cosby or Heathcliff and Claire. You know, they would get in the bed, and it wasn't all of that what we see today, simulating sex. And it's just so irresponsible what we just put out here. And people say, oh, well, you know, time should change. I want to be represented on TV. You don't have to be represented in that way. Use your imagination. That's what we have one for. It worked for us. It can work for kids now or adults now. We don't have to see that. If you want to see porn, get porn. But I shouldn't have to be subjected to that watching a regular TV show. I just shouldn't.
Shamika, I do want to inform you, the chat is siding with you. They're crediting Ozempic 63% for the weight loss and Lizzo just 36%. The polls are still open. If you want to, I'm rooting for Lizzo here. They should count my vote. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you, Shamika. We'll see you tomorrow. Get those poll numbers up for Lizzo. Support us fat people that are trying to correct our weight problem. Lizzo deserves the credit, not Ozempic. All right, we're playing tomorrow. That means we'll see you tomorrow.
Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.